The first time I went to India was like 15 years ago or something. And uh, and before I left, I read the first book of the Earthsea trilogy. It's a little fantasy trilogy by Ursula Le Guin. And the most remarkable thing is that once I got to Thailand, I found the second book. So I went ahead and bought it and read it. And then later, when I was in India, in Hyderabad, there's this big book fair every Sunday. And I found the third book and I read it. It was quite charming to, find them like that and read them. And ever since then, I've thought it would make just the most fantastic movie. Like, it's really quite good, or a trilogy of movies. And I was at one of the thrift stores here, and I bought a bunch of movies the other day. Everything was half off. And one of the things I bought was this movie, Earthsea. And I said, oh my gosh, they made a movie about it. So I got this movie. It's like almost 3 hours long, I guess. But as I watched it, I realized, okay, this is just, it sort of homogenizes the three books together. And the characters are, it's based on the characters, it's based on the story, but it's definitely different than the books. And so now I still think that it would make a very good movie. If you're not familiar with Ursula Le Guin, she's quite smart, really great writer. And it's funny that the most, I mean, I read the Earthsea trilogy. I've come across some of her other work, but what I'm most familiar with from her is a recording she did of the Tao Te Ching for, I think, Shambhala Press. And it's really good. It's really good. She doesn't speak or read Chinese, but she took all of the copies of the Tao Te Ching she could find and read through them and in some ways homogenized and poeticized them. And then there's this Japanese musician behind her. So good. So good. I got it on a cassette tape, and I wore that tape out. I mean, I literally wore the tape out. I listened to it so much. And for years, I could recite it. I could just recite it because I'd listened to it so much. And later, I went to look to see if the CD was available. And supposedly, they were releasing it like the next fall or something like that. So I prepaid for it. And like a year went by, and I realized, okay, they'd refunded my money and decided not to put it out. So I don't know if it's available digitally, but whatever it would cost, if you're into subtle wisdom, it is so fine. It is so good. 10,000 things are straw dogs. The Tao. Are you familiar with Taoism? With the Tao? Lao Tzu was the author of the Tao Te Ching, and he was a contemporary of Confucius. But unlike Confucius, who is all about practical, Confucius was basically the Aristotle of China, bridging philosophy with real life. Whereas the Tao Te Ching is very ephemeral. The Tao that can be named is not the true Tao. That sums it up right there. And so there's all these ways to approach the Tao. And the Tao translates to the way. The way. So there's all these different ways to approach the way. But the way in and of itself is nothing. But all things are subject to it, to the process. I mean, like I say, you can't put your finger on it, but you can sort of point at it in unlimited situations. And I'm really a fan of the Tao and Taoism. And in fact, for anybody who likes the idea of inner process, inner alchemy, the Taoist tradition has a lot of really great stuff. The Mind Seal Classic by the Jade Emperor is really high quality. The Golden Flower, that's profound. I've always been a fan of wisdom. I feel like if I read the right book, I mean, I don't think this, but I feel it, like if I read the right book, something will unlock and all will be revealed. Because I don't know about you, but I've had moments of clarity that seem to penetrate deep into the nature of existence. And in those moments, that profound understanding is so obvious, so actual that I sense that there's something more to understand. Maybe it's just part of the human condition to want to bridge that understanding into the regular life, into the real world. Like there was one time, there's one practice, neti neti, which not this, which is like an Indian practice where any thought that comes to, if you're working to meditate, any thought or idea that comes to your mind is by its very essence and nature not what you're looking for. So it's a process of continual rejection of anything that comes to your mind. Not this, not this, not this, not this. If you can conceive it, it's not it, And so one time I was sitting overlooking this valley for about a month and a half, and it occurred to me to try that out. And for whatever reason, I was able to penetrate that depth of wisdom, and it's almost like my mind popped inside out. And in that moment, everything was one pointed, and I could cradle that understanding in a way that was very for sure. Like it was obvious and eternal. And again, just the human condition, I don't know what it was. It was like when I tried to go in and out of lucid dreams, I said to myself, this is so profound, this is so obvious. And at that point it was resilient. I said I wanted to sort of play with it and see if I could find a way, like leave a breadcrumb trail back to that place. Find some sort of golden thread so I could get back there at will. Well, it was only a second. I was out of orbit of it, and I was aware that I was just in a state, and I knew that it was something profound and important, but it had evaporated. It was just like some sort of vapor in my mind. Like I don't know what it was, and so I know that state is there, and I know it's approachable through that technique at least. But again, I think it's just wanting to bridge the deep, profound states of consciousness with this real world, and I'm just not sure if it's possible 100%. But I know that those states exist, and I know that they can be attained with effort. It's worth the effort. I think it's worth the effort. But do I have a daily practice where I pursue that? I don't. Another time I had a profound experience, it was something else. So sacred I probably shouldn't talk about it, but it seems like it's probably a benefit to people. So if you want to explore it, I invite you. And it was the most remarkable thing. I was getting ready to go on a trip, and so I was leaving my room, and as an afterthought, I saw a statue of Ganesh. Now I'm not one to honor idols as God, but I fully appreciate that they're symbols that remind us of God. But in this moment, as I was about to leave my room, I turned back and I approached the statue of Ganesh I have, and I said a prayer. I said, "Oh, keep me safe. May I, may good things, come to me or whatever." And as kind of almost as an afterthought of my afterthought, right at the end there, I said, "And may I remember your name." Really, if you can tread the path of remembrance of the name of God, in my opinion, and the opinion of many great saints from India, that's as good as you can get. It's a well-trodden path to enlightenment, love of God. It just is. So I, like I say, I may I remember your name, and it was amazing. My mind crystallized into color geometry, and again, I thought it was so profound. I thought, well, I tested it. I left that state or whatever, and then I again put that sentiment into my heart and mind, and again I was reconnected in this somehow fundamental way. Now, what was going on, I really don't know, frankly. My hypothesis would be that we are God. We are not separate from God, and so for part of God to wish to remember God's name is almost like asking to remember your own name. Somehow I feel like I short-circuited the human consciousness, and like I said, I felt so blessed to be able to have a formula somehow to approach God. And I tell you, if you can find that sincere intention, that sincere desire, if you can tune to that sincere desire in your heart, I have to guess that the same types of things would happen to anybody. You know, it's hard to know. You know, it's not that kind of thing you can read in a comic book and just understand. It's maybe just not the human destiny to understand fully. But it seems like the right thing to do. Like Jesus said, seek ye first the kingdom of God, and all the rest will be given to you. You know, may we find the kingdom of God.